My name's Al Price, as you've probably recognized here, and I'm here to talk a little bit about the impact that coaches and teachers can have on young players and young students. I've dedicated my life to teaching and more recently to coaching. My passion is baseball. You probably recognize the high-tech props in behind here and the kind of message that I like to get across. Coaching is a commitment, or with a commitment to develop the player and the person, is the theme of what I'd like to talk about, and I know the theme overall is leadership, so leadership through coaching is my approach. Today, at least as the start of the presentation, you're my coaches. When I started coaching, the most important part to coaching that I represented was working with a player. Teaching them all the fundamental skills of baseball and making sure they understood how to throw and catch and field ground balls, and I was very tipped towards winning. I'm a very competitive person, and so I tried the best I could to turn this little group of players into a championship team and winning. And through my life, I've had a chance to learn a lot from my own kids and the coaches of their kids and the kids that and the coaches that I've worked with, my colleagues as teachers and friends. And I've shifted gears over time, some 35 years of coaching now, to more focus on the development of the person. Today, the bench that's in behind me here represents the 5 or 6, actually 12 players that would sit on a team. And I want to walk you through, if you were a coach, and I want to wear that hat for me for a few minutes of a typical Little League team in the 9, 10, 11, and 12-year-old category. I think that kids at that age are very impressionable and have a lot to offer and also provide us a real good context as coaches. You're going to have, if you were coaching a Little League team, if you're lucky enough to get volunteered into that role, or any team, you're going to end up with 3, 6, 2, and 1 in the profile of the players that you're working with. I don't think I've ever coached a team in any of the sports that I've ever worked with, or even looked out onto a field and seen anything different than that. And I want to just give a little archetype, a little profile of the way that coaches should look and understand how players think, what they're about, and how they're influenced by the coach and everything around the game itself. You're going to have 3 big Al's. It's usually a really good-looking athlete like myself, kind of the stud guy at the end of the bench. There's 3 kids usually on every team that I would call big Al's. And the big Al's often are just the big kids. At 11 or 12, they might weigh in at 165 pounds and weigh about 5'10", and they always get the big profile. They're the ones that almost are entitled to this leadership role and those kinds of things. And often when you're working with young kids, if you've had a chance to coach, you would find that these 3 players, because they have a little bit of an attitude and because they feel special, are very hard to coach. In fact, even though they're probably the best athletes on the team, they're the hardest ones to turn around and influence. And these kids, because they've been told many times over that they're special by just about everybody around them, they are actually a candidate for dropping out by the time they're 13. Because they don't really listen that well. They're born perfect. This whole lineup of 12 players are all born perfect. But they come with a different experience. If you were a coach and you were kind of a rookie at it, you'd say, well, Al, how would I identify these kids? You're telling me about these different things, and I kind of got to know this stuff. Well, you wouldn't have any problem identifying these kids. If they didn't tell you were special, my dad would. Right? He's going to step up and say, if I was a rookie coach, he'd say things like, listen, my son's a real good player. He'll pitch for you. He bats the 4 spot. He's going to start every game. He doesn't play the outfield. I've coached my son for 4 or 5 years. I'm a pretty busy person this year. But in those 4 years, he's never, ever played the outfield. And so this entitlement, it's a little bit of a pretending role because really they didn't really earn this spot. Now, as a coach, you need to understand where they're coming from because they were born perfect and they just got a little attitude now that needs to be changed, or it's going to cause a problem right through life. You're going to have 6 players in the middle of the bench, and if you've coached or played on a team, you'll know exactly what I'm going to say next about these 6. The 6 in the middle of the bench aren't as strong, they're not as big, they don't have the natural talent. They know they're not as good as Big Al. How do they know? Big Al usually tells them. He says, hey, now you get over to second base, I'm the shortstop. These guys in the middle of the bench, if you've coached at all towards a championship game, you're going to find that these 6 kids just make plays. They just show up, they listen, they know they're not as good, so they're actually human sponges for learning, And they never really cause you a problem. As a coach, sometimes you forget them because they are so cooperative and they just work and all those kinds of things. Now in life, in the long term, these are the kids that make high school teams. They come out of the core of this bench. I do a lot of work for Little League Baseball internationally, and 2 of the 3 kids up here are going to quit before they're 13. Because they don't change their attitude, and these other kids, they eat in the winter, they get stronger, they listen, they develop their skills, and all of a sudden they're the ones that people are starting to talk about and build teams around. Now you've got 3 bigs, 6 mediums, and you're going to have 2 and 1 more. When you look at any particular team, you'll always have 2 kids right here. In baseball, these are the kids that are a little bit turned off to the game. They haven't had a very good experience. They're just sitting there waiting, I'm wondering if I should play another year. They're usually not as skilled. Sometimes they've got a rough life at home, or they've got things aren't going well at school. Now coaches, you get the whole profile. These 2 kids right over here actually thought they signed up for soccer this year and got dropped off their baseball bag. And we've all been there. If you're a parent of kids, you know exactly who I'm talking about here. And I always tell coaches when I'm working with them, these two here only came because the parents played the ace of diamonds, the big card. A lot of my coaches would say, or parents would say, son, I love this game. It's a fantastic game. It's a blast when I was growing up. And you just give it 1 more year. Just 1 more year. And the card a parent always plays, they always say, this year, you're going to get a good coach. So you're going to have 3 bigs, 6 middles, 2 littles, and there's always 1 more. And this fits the profile. I always forgot about this guy until about 2 or 3 years ago when I was reflecting back on my own teams that I played on. There's always 1 more. And this guy's he's kind of that team clown. He actually totally sucks at this game, and he doesn't even care. He actually just wants to be around every other player here. He wants to compete, but he knows it's not going to be a big part of his life. Other people think, they like to play at the next level and so on. This little guy at the end is the total joker. He hides gloves in the dugout. He breaks, he finds ways to, stress relief in big times in games. Now this guy right down here, and if you're a teacher, you know what I'm talking about too. This is the chemistry on a team. It's built around this player. If a coach treats all of these kids fair, works with the 3 bigs and tries to change their attitude, keeps reinforcing, doesn't lose sight of the middle 6, somehow finds a way to connect and re-engage these 2 kids that are disengaged, and gives them a chance to play. This little guy down here, he's going to have it's not even a question. He's going to have a successful life. The guy's got charisma. He's the only kid in this lineup here that goes to every kid's birthday party. Every single one. In fact, he organizes 6 of them, so I think he actually how many have had a team like that, or actually thought about kids in that kind of a profile? That's the way I would look at a team. Now when coaches step up to take on a role, that's the role you're supposed to be. Coaches need to be 12 for 12. In baseball, the big deal is hitting average. You hit 300, you're a very special player. As a coach, you need to go 12 for 12. 12 for 12 means at the end of this experience, every single one of these kids continues in this game, or to whatever their passion happens to be. We often say if you're a 6 for 12 coach, 6 come back and 6 find another sport to play. We always tell coaches in baseball, if you're a 6 for 12, go coach soccer, because then we'll get them back. You'll send them back our way, right? This context here is what I'm about, connecting with all 12 kids. It really doesn't matter the level. And in the end, these 2 little guys right here sometimes actually get a hook. They develop a passion. They get better. They get stronger. And often we'll see these little guys down here and these ones winning. If winning MVPs and World Championship Series and all those kinds of things are important, that's what comes out of this end. It's tough, but these 3 kind of don't step up in the big times because they never really had to be pushed. They were never challenged. And often it's not their fault, but they fall by the wayside a bit. They bat 200, they make mistakes, they don't win ball games as a pitcher because they've never really been exposed to that. This little 6 group here, they just make plays. They get that little hit in a key situation because nobody expects anything out of them, and they actually just step up and do what they've been doing kind of all year long. Now this profile is the way that coaches need to look at their kids. And the second part of what I want to say is I want you now to wear a parent hat. Wear a parent's hat or wear a player's hat. When you wear a parent or player hat, there really are only 5 ways that you look at a coach. At least that's the way I look at them when I was, as a parent of the 4 kids we have. Right? There's going to be an evaluation of the coach. It's a simple one. You have to go 5 for 5. If you want to coach my kids, you've got to go 5 for 5. Now, you may not want to coach my kids, but just pretend you'd like to have my kids in your lineup. Right? 5 for 5 means this. You have to fit these criteria. You have to be a kind person. A kind person is somebody that's always focused on doing the right thing. You may make a mistake, but kind people just apologize and get on with life. Now, if you're 1 for 1, you're an average type person. You've got to go 5 for 5. It's a nice attribute to have, but it's not enough. The second thing you need to be able to do is you need to be a caring person. See, a caring person goes way beyond kind. A caring person doesn't have the same rules for every kid. A caring person is consistently inconsistent based on the attribute that that kid happens to bring. A good teacher will be in the same context. They'll have the basic rules for safety and all those kinds of things, but a caring person finds a way to connect based on what that kid actually brings to the table. A little bit of attitude, maybe a little asthma, maybe some special needs on your team, whatever it happens to be. You recognize that and you change the rules to accommodate that kid, that player. So we've got kind and caring. If you're kind and caring, you're a pretty special person. But you can't still have my kid. At least you got to go 2 more. Kind, caring, safe to be around. You have to be safe to be around, both physically and emotionally. See, parents number 1 is safety. There's bats and balls flying around here. I've got a kid out there with a bunch of other players. Physical safety is just the top of the list. You assume it's looked after, but it's really, really important stuff. And then safe to be around emotionally is a completely different game. You have to understand that sarcasm for kids at young ages, they don't understand. It's like poison. Sarcasm, they take everything, the words that come out. So sarcasm shouldn't even be used. I'm not sure it should ever be used, but it sure shouldn't be used in a 12 and under category. Kind, caring, safe to be around emotionally and physically. Now, I even told you the one that the kids look for. Is this guy fun, or is this gal fun as a coach? Do they actually relax a bit? Can they be a part of the team? Can they lead? Do they have a little charisma? Can they make mistakes? Can they laugh at themselves? Am I going to have a blast working with this person? Kind, caring, safe to be around physically and emotionally, and fun. Or young kids would call you goofy. It's just any kind of thing that takes the seriousness out of your game. Now, if you're 4 for 4, I find you with my kids. I'm going to line them up. Actually, the sport doesn't matter to me. Because the 5th thing, the player, actually that in the long run doesn't even matter. Can you teach a little bit of baseball? I hope you can. That's the easy part. Can you teach physics? Of course you can. You have a degree. Are you kind, caring, safe to be around, and are you fun? Are you engaging? That's the criteria I used every time I looked at any coaches, and actually as a high school principal, it's the exact same criteria I use with my teachers. I didn't spend a lot of time over here worrying about whether they could teach. Can they connect? Can they engage? Can they get to know everybody in that lineup, whatever that lineup happens to be? So in that context, coaches are in a funny spot. They just kind of are given this role. And for a period of life between maybe 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, coaches have actually more influence than parents and teachers. And I actually don't think that's right. I'm a coach and I don't think that's right. Teachers spend thousands of hours with kids. How could we possibly compete on the influence the coaches have? And parents, for a certain period of time, it's the same story. The coach has actually got more influence than the parent. Now, in the long run, it changes. But when I'm working with coaches, I say, guys, you got that little spot there. You don't deserve it. But you have it. Don't screw it up. Don't screw it up. Work off of this 5 for 5. Focus on the person, not the player. And then we always close off with a simple thing. The coach and the player, or the impact you have on the player, it just comes and goes. It really does. It just comes and goes. The impact you have on a person is for life. Thank you very much.